What's up, Tsla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down why tomorrow is going to be a very important day as we have the CPI data report coming out. So I'm going to give you guys my prediction for CPI, talk about how this could affect the markets, talk about more news for Tesla, and what you should be watching for as time goes on. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. Anyways, for Tesla, the 4 hours looking a bit more bullish as we saw a nice break to the upside. Tesla's up over 5%, SPY is up 1.6%, and then the QQQ is also up about 2.5%. The market got a very, very nice green day, a nice reaction after PPI data. So the question is, what does this mean for CPI and what's going to happen in the future? So I'm going to give you guys my predictions. Let's first talk about this. As you guys know, PPI data came out. As a quick reminder, this data was all below expectations. So this means wholesale inflation was below expectations, which is a good sign for CPI. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it does suggest that's a good sign for us, especially for CPI during the next report. But when it comes to CPI, tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, August 14th, 2024. 1 hour before the market opens, we have the CPI data report coming out. We're expecting CPI month over month for the core sides to be around 0.2 to 0.3%. That's actually higher than what we saw before, so that's what we're expecting. And then for CPI for all items month over month, we're expecting 0.2%, once again higher than before. But for core year over year, we're expecting this 3.2 to 3.3% range, not to mention 3 to 2.9% for year over year for all items. So for all items CPI, we're expecting the numbers to be very similar to what we got before. For core, it's the same thing year over year. And then for the month over months, we're expecting everything to be a little bit hotter than before as well. So that's what the market is expecting going into tomorrow. This data comes out at 8:30 a.m., an hour before market open, by the way. So we'll see what this leads to. But according to my estimates, it seems like there's a good chance that CPI is going to be aligned with expectations, if not below them, in my opinion. So I'm going to break down exactly why that is and how this could affect us. So one thing worth mentioning is that during the last report, we got the first negative reading in CPI we've ever gotten for the past year. That's a good sign, at least for us. I'm very, very conscious of the fact that CPI is very biased, very manipulated, and you can't really encompass CPI or inflation as a whole with just one number. I really believe that. However, I just want to make it very clear that I just have to go with these numbers because of the data that's being reported, because the Fed accepts this, and because this affects the markets. So this was the first good, like really, really good negative reading we got month over month. So we'll see how things end up looking month over month. But then for basically what we're seeing on this trend, ever since around April, CPI has been aligned with expectations every single time, if not below them. There's been a big downtrend that's been respected, at least thus far. So there's a high probability that because we got a nice reading during the last report, the next one that's coming out tomorrow is going to be decent. There's a very, very good chance of that, in my opinion. On top of this, I want to mention that when it comes to retail gas prices, we saw basically gas at about $3.45 a gallon on average in the US, and it went up just slightly by about 3 to 4 cents around that range, which is very, very minor. It went up only that much for July, so it's going to likely be very similar to before, and that's a good sign that CPI will be similar as well. And finally, when you look at crude futures, we're expecting crude futures to be very, very important for CPI because this does tend to dictate things. And you guys could see that crude futures reported the July data at a slight increase. When we look at the June data, right here, we had a CPI at 2.98%, and then crude futures was at 78.71. For July, we had 80.56 for crude futures, a slight increase, which is very, very minor. This suggests that CPI is going to be very close to before. It's not really much of a change. That's not looking too bad. Right now, the market thinks there's a 54% chance we get a 50 basis point cut from the Fed and a 46% chance we get a 25 basis point cut. We'll see which one it is, but just know that this is going to be heavily dictated by the data tomorrow. We did see the 50 basis point cut probability go up a little bit because the market gained a little bit more confidence looking at the PPI report. So I'm hoping for the best. I want to remain optimistic nonetheless, and we'll just have to see how things kind of like develop from here. But that's what I'm seeing, at least for the time being. The data is not looking too bad, so we just want to give this some time. On top of all this, I just want to mention that as far as data and such go, Tesla is going to be looking for some big reactions, especially the market. Just know that NU or New announced its earnings. They did relatively well. For tomorrow, we also have Dole and Cisco, not to mention on Thursday, we have Alibaba, Walmart, JD, and a few others. For NEO, they did relatively well, beating estimates, and they did pretty good there. Outlook was also a beat, so that's why the share price is up about 4%. For other pieces of news, okay, so the main thing is CPI for the markets. There's also an external piece of news that's going to be this whole Iran and Israel situation. I just want to say that Iran, they may be, conducting a retaliation attack. It's a possibility. I don't know for sure if it's going to happen, but there's been so much talk about this. So this is always going to be a warning. If this does happen, the market could actually still see a big decline. That's why I'm going to go over the bullish and bearish cases in just a few minutes. So be prepared just in case. So I'll talk about that in just a minute. Two more pieces of news about Tesla. There's been a lot of talk about this Tesla camper van. It looks pretty cool in my personal opinion. This is something I think Tesla should consider. I think this would be a big winner for them if they were to release something like this. And it looks very, very cool. This could have a nice range according to what reports are suggesting. And if this is unveiled, it would be very, very awesome for them. I think there's been a lot of talk about a van coming out for Tesla. It looks pretty cool. And I think that this is going to help attract a lot of people in the US, people that love these camping vans. They're very popular here. So I think that would be very, very awesome. There's been a lot of talk about the whole interview between Elon Musk and former President Trump. It was more of like a conversation. I just want to say this, guys, I'm trying to stay away from politics on this channel. I think there was good and bad that came from it. The good is the fact that we could see what, X is capable of doing. There's so many people, hundreds of millions, if not billions, listening to Elon Musk and many other figures. And then on top of that, I think that it's good to see Musk in a good relationship with former President Trump if he does become president again. But there is some bad, of course. Of course, there's going to be companies that and people that don't want to buy Teslas or kind of want to protest against them because of this. I mentioned this in previous videos, but when it comes to Elon Musk as a whole, I mean, say what you want about him. He has his ups and downs. I admit that. But I will say this. I think that he does bring more innovation and growth for Tesla's future. And I think that there's a lot more good than bad that comes from him thanks to how he's able to assemble these teams and run these companies. So that's my personal view. I don't want to get too much into the politics and stuff. I just want to say that there are good and bad things that come from interviews like that and conversations with certain figures. But at the end of the day, I think that there's more good than bad that comes from Musk as a whole. I still appreciate him nonetheless. We have 76 million for volume. That's still a little bit below average. And then short volume is also kind of flat right now at the 61% mark. RBC Capital gave Tesla an outperform rating, and Tesla is known for doing relatively well on Wednesdays. We're getting about 49% of the time. And then the price price ratio is starting to climb as Tesla's building some strength. So that is it. That's it for all my data and news. Just note the main two things are going to be Iran and then also the CPI report. The CPI is the biggest factor affecting the markets. But I'm going to close everything and just focus on Tesla now. We're just going to focus on that. So what on earth is going to happen, in my opinion, with the share price? Well, we look bullish. If you look at the 4-hour time frame, returning very nicely on the PPO. And then if you look at the daily, we look more bullish, in my personal opinion. So the daily looks like it's going to be testing around 210, if not 212. And if that breaks, we're looking for this gap fill for 216. Those are the bullish targets. If we're bearish, let's just say CPI is not too good, look at 205 as key support. If we lose that, we're going back down to 200, if not lower. From a technical standpoint, we got a nice breakouts today, and Tesla looks more bullish. It looks like it wants to push to at least 212, if not 216, in my opinion. Now, technicals are just one big factor. Obviously, it depends on news and all these different factors like CPI, but just know the chart suggests upside is more favorable, and that's most likely what's going to happen, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens with CPI. I can't promise anything, but the charts do look more bullish. For SPY, we look very bullish. If we break 542, look for 544 and then 548. If we lose 538, look for 535 as key supports. And then we're also going to be followed by the next support is going all the way down to the 520s if we lose 535. So are we going to lose 538 and turn more bearish? Or are we going to break out above 542 and continue to pump? The chart suggests more upside is more favorable in my opinion, and it looks like it might be trying to push to at least 544, if not 548, looking at the bigger time frames. So SPY looks more bullish, but just to be safe, make sure you watch your data, watch your levels. It also depends on CPI and also what happens with Iran. For ES, watch 54.56. We look more bullish. If we break this, we're going up towards 54.80 and eventually the 5,500 area. If you reject here, there's going to be a big drop coming down to about 53.80. In my personal opinion, I think the odds are favoring upside for the higher 5400s, if not 5,500 plus. ES looks more bullish, so give this some time. I just want to say that this is looking pretty good with a nice looking structure. So ES looks more bullish. We'll just have to see if we get that breakout. But just know that when it comes to the way ES is moving, it depends on CPI. We're at some key resistance, but we still look pretty good. SPX looks more bullish. If we continue to push right here, I'm going to be looking at this 5450 area. Excuse me, guys, 5450. If that breaks, 5500 plus is coming. If we end up losing 5400, look at 5360 followed by 5300. This chart looks more bullish. It looks like it wants to get closer to about 5480 and finally 5500. We look very bullish on SPX in my opinion, but this also depends on the data. Just keep that in the back of your guys' minds. Nvidia looks bullish. There is no sign of weakness today. If we break and hold above 116, we're going up to at least 120, if not 123 to fill our gap. If we lose 113, we're going to be looking for a move back down towards 108, then eventually these lower levels. But just know we look more bullish. We're favoring 120 plus in my opinion, depending on CPI, of course, but we still look more bullish. Bitcoin looks more bullish. We're making higher highs and higher lows on this trend, but we have a tough resistance at 61,700. If that breaks, we're going all the way up towards 62,800. And if we lose to 59,700, we're going to be dipping back down towards 58,500. My gut tells me this is favoring a test of about just under 62,000. And we'll have to see if that breaks or not, but it still looks more bullish. For NQ, we also look a bit more bullish in my opinion. If we end up breaking past 19,226, we're going to be looking for a push all the way up towards 19,500. If we end up rejecting here, we'll be dipping back down towards 18,800. In my personal opinion, I think that we look very bullish on NQ and we're favoring 19,226, if not the mid 19,000s. So I think we look more bullish. We have this imbalance on the left to fill up here. So see where this bar is right here. We're going to try to fill this. We look more bullish. It looks like it wants to push higher. Whether we get that push depends on CPI, but like I said, the chart looks bullish. For the QQQ, okay, we have the 200 EMA at 464. If we break this, I think we're easily going up towards very close to about 470, 468 to 470. And if that breaks, we're going up to 474. If we reject, make sure you look at our support at 460. If that fails us, I'll be looking at 454. In my opinion, I think we look more bullish. We had this low here, made a higher high, higher low, higher high. We're trying to push. We're also forming a nice cup, so I favor the upside. I think there's a good chance we get very close to that 470 area. I think that the QQQ looks more bullish. Now, it's possible we end up losing support and we end up dipping below 454. It's always a possibility. That depends on CPI. But I just want to say this chart looks a lot stronger and strongly favors upside. Apple's looking more bullish, but let me just say that it depends on this tough resistance at 222, maybe a little bit under that. If we break that, we're going back up towards 225. If we lose this, we're going to be dipping back down towards 216. If we lose that, that's going to be our bearish signal for a big dip. As of right now, Apple is favoring upside. We still look bullish at the time I'm recording this, so it's not looking bad whatsoever. For other tickers out there, we're going to go up to about Palantir. Now I'm going to be a little bit quicker with the rest of these. So for Palantir, okay, we're looking bullish. Why? We had this low here, making a higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. And overall, it's holding structure very, very nicely. So from how I see things, it's very simple. If we get a rejection, we're looking at 29.06 as support, followed by 28.01. Those are going to be your two supports if we end up dipping. If we lose 30, if we hold above 30, I think we're going back up to 31 plus. So we look more bullish. I think that there's a good chance this could hold up. For Supermicro, we're trying to turn on the 4-hour time frame. If we lose 549, we'll be dipping all the way down towards previous resistance around 527. And if we hold above this support at 550, I'll be looking at this very, very important resistance on 580. Break that, and we're going to be looking for 600 in my personal opinion. We're kind of tight right now. In my opinion, this is favoring 600. It looks like it wants to touch 600. This depends on CPI, of course, but the charts still remain bullish. That has not changed. I also want to mention that Rivian is a little bit more bearish in terms of its trend, making lower lows and then lower highs continually, but it held support, so that's a good sign. One thing you can mention is that we had this like kind of like wedge-like structure, so it's not looking that great. But it's possible if we extend this a little bit longer. So what I could do is adjust this. What we could draw it out like this, because if we continue to hold our support even after CPI, we could redraw it like this. It's possible that we're just going to continue to test this and this is just extended. So it could bounce tomorrow and just continue to maintain this wedge for an extended period of time before we get a break. But there is still that risk of us falling into the 12s. later on. I still think Rivian looks kind of weak. We might bounce, just continue to consolidate and eventually dip. For SoFi, there's an uptrend attempt that's kind of forming here. We got to break past 6.8 to really start pushing towards 7. If we fail to do so, look at support at 6.4. If that breaks, we're going to be dipping all the way down to about 6.25. But we look more bullish. We had this low here. It made a higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. And now we're starting to form a wedge. So you can actually draw it out like this. See how we're holding up quite nicely. So this is a good sign that we're going to look for upside tomorrow. The reason for that is because if CPI is decent, just hypothetically, the Fed fund futures projections will be adjusted. That's kind of a big effect on the finance sector for these banks and the companies that are similar to banks, right? So I think this is going to be very important. Watch and see what we end up getting. SoFi is going to be key for us. For the IWM Russell 2000, we're looking a little bit more bullish. And here's the reason why. So we had this bullish wedge that was trying to form, and the issue is this was we had a small issue. The issue was we were barely at support yesterday, so we were like right here. If we had lost this, we would turn bearish. If we held this, we'd bounce depending on PPI. And lo and behold, we held support. So now we're forming a wedge on the IWM. So this is a very, very good sign. If it breaks 208s tomorrow, we're going to be looking for a push into the 210s. If we end up losing support, you're going to be looking at basically 206. If that fails, let's look for a dip. But this chart is strongly favoring the upside for 210 plus. AMD is looking more bullish, got a nice breakout from this wedge. As long as we're above 138, I think this is going to be pushing for this imbalance around 144. And if we lose 138, look for a big dip, but this is favoring 144. For ARM, look at this resistance around this. Let me just double check. 125 area. If we break this, we're going to be looking for basically this imbalance towards 130. This is also previous support becoming resistance. If we lose 118, there's going to be a bigger drop coming down towards 108. But this chart is favoring upside for 130. For Coinbase is looking more bullish to me as we have a nice looking wedge that's forming. So this to me is looking more bullish. I think that there's a good chance that this will continue to push. And we'll be looking for 205. If 200 breaks, look for 205 plus. If we lose support here, we'll be dipping back down towards basically 185. I think we favor upside for 200 plus and eventually 205. Amazon looks more bullish. Look at 171. If this breaks, we'll be looking for a big push all the way up towards 174. And if we lose 167, we'll be dipping back down towards 164. In my opinion, the chart looks more bullish. For Meta, we look more bullish because of this. Let me just show you this real quick. Let's not worry about these for now. It's very simple, right? We're breaking structure here. As long as we continue to hold above 527, we're going up to 534, if not higher. If we lose 525, look at 520. If that fails, we're going down to about 512. The chart favors upside. For Microsoft, we look more bullish. If we hold above, let me just double check this. 412, I think this is going up towards 420. If we lose 412, look for 408. If that fails, this will be dipping, but this favors upside. For Google's trying to uptrend right here. The problem is we got a little bit of a dip in the after hours, so not looking as great, but it's still uptrending, at least technically speaking. If you get a good CPI, we got to break past 166 around that area. We got to break it, not just hold it, but break it. We break it, we're going up to the gap fill towards 168. Kind of tight, not that great. If we lose 164, look for a dip back down to 162, but we look more bullish. But we need to break this resistance. It's going to be kind of tough, so I'm going to be watching for that. Real quick for GameStop, as long as we hold above 22.18, we're going to be looking for a push for 23.5. If we lose 21.7, we'll be dipping back down. We favor upside on GameStop for 23. AMC is also favoring 5.2 if we break through resistance. Kind of choppy, but it does look kind of decent. DJT is on a bit of a downtrend, rejecting off his 20 EMA. We got to reclaim 25.5 to turn back up. Otherwise, this is at risk of dipping all the way down to about 23 before we try to bounce. But this could get a surprise bounce thanks to CPI. Maybe dips a bit, then tries to bounce. And there could be a test of 25.5. It's possible, but it's not looking that great, technically speaking. For the VIX, this looks bearish. It might be testing 17.35. We'll see if we get a bounce later on or not. But for now, it looks bearish, approaching CPI. The 10-year Treasury yield is going to make a big move because of how interest rate projections are going to shift because of CPI. This dipped a bit thanks to the PPI report. Might dip more thanks to CPI, which suggests the Fed may have to be more dovish. We'll see. And then the dollar is doing the same thing, essentially dipping. So we'll see if it dips or not. But that depends on CPI. Anyways, that is it for my analysis. In essence, the market is bullish. It looks very, very bullish. Tesla looks bullish. Nvidia looks bullish. The market looks very bullish heading into tomorrow from a technical standpoint. Technicals are obviously not sufficient. They're not going to give you all the information you need when a CPI day comes out. So we'll see how things end up looking, but just know that they do suggest upside is very probable, and we'll see what CPI looks like. So I'll be back tomorrow to report CPI. I'll give you guys another very, very important update. Until then, I just want to say I really appreciate you guys so much for your kind comments, so much for your guys' attentions. Feel free to leave a comment and a like if you guys really enjoyed this video, and let me know your thoughts on the markets. I love to answer questions if I get time. I'm not always available, guys, so sorry if I don't read every single comment, but I do the best I can nonetheless. So have a great night, day, or evening wherever you are around the world, and I'll see you guys very soon before the market opens tomorrow. Thank you for listening, and peace out.